Welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is holding hostage the articles of impeachment. She says she won't send them to the Senate until she considers the Senate trial fair. A Democratic congressman officially announces his switch to the GOP. He was one of only 3 Democrats who voted against impeachment. After more than a year of talks, the House passes the US-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, President Trump's replacement for NAFTA. A federal appeals court ruled that the individual mandate component of Obamacare is invalid. President Trump applauded the move and said he will continue working on providing lower-cost health care. And the TSA expects an increase in travelers this holiday season and makes suggestions on how to prepare for long lines going through security. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is delaying sending the articles of impeachment to the Senate after the House last night voted to impeach President Trump. NTD's Holly Kellum has more on her reasons and the Senate Republicans' reactions.
After taking a historic vote last night to impeach President Trump, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced she isn't sending the charges to the Senate.
We cannot name managers until we see what the process is on the Senate side, and I would hope that
the managers she's referring to are House impeachment managers who act like prosecutors during the impeachment trial in the Senate. She and other Democrats want witnesses to be called during the trial, specifically ones the House couldn't get to appear. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has requested 4 witnesses, including Trump's acting chief of staff and one of his former national security advisors. So far, though, McConnell isn't entertaining his request.
His plan to prevent House managers from calling witnesses to prove their case is a dramatic break from precedent.
McConnell says that it was the House's job to do the fact-finding and that he won't let the Senate do the House's homework. He points to how quickly the House rushed to an impeachment vote compared to previous impeachments as evidence that Democrats just want to make sure Trump isn't reelected.
Over the last 12 weeks, House Democrats have conducted the most rushed, least thorough, and most unfair impeachment inquiry in modern history.
There are no rules in the Constitution on how the Senate should run the trial. McConnell has said he wants to follow the example of the impeachment trial for Bill Clinton and hold 2 votes, one before the trial and one during the trial, to decide what, if any, witnesses should be called. He mocked Pelosi for trying to get her way by holding the process up.
They said impeachment was so urgent that it could not even wait for due process, but now they're content to sit on their hands. This is really comical.
Trump wrote on Twitter that if House Democrats don't send the articles of impeachment to the Senate, they would lose by default. Senate Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham called the precedent Pelosi is setting incredibly dangerous.
We have separation of powers for a reason. You can't be Speaker of the House and Majority Leader of the Senate at the same time.
Pelosi is hoping to use the articles of impeachment as leverage, but it's not yet clear what leverage it would give her. McConnell has proposed that both chambers of Congress work with the White House to come up with a deal on how the trial should be conducted. And if they can't agree, he says, they should take their differences to court. But he made clear he didn't think House Democrats had a case.
Frankly, if either of these articles is blessed by the Senate, we could easily see the impeachment of every future president of either party.
Schumer said he would speak to McConnell this week about a framework for the Senate trial. Holly Kellum, NTD News.
One of 3 House Democrats who voted against impeachment formally announced today he's joining the Republican Party. First-year Congressman Jeff Van Drew made the announcement after meeting with President Trump and other Republicans at the White House today. He's been the most vocal Democrat against impeachment, and last night he voted against both impeachment charges. He told his staff about it last week, but hadn't officially announced it. Van Drew comes from a New Jersey district that Trump won in 2016. The district was represented by a Republican for over 2 decades before him. Trump said he would endorse Van Drew for re-election, and Van Drew told Trump he had his undying support. Van Drew said he thinks the Republican Party is a better fit for him. And the U.S. House of Representatives voted to approve the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade deal today, clearing the biggest hurdle to ratifying it.
One day after the Democrat-led House impeachment of President Trump, the lower chamber passed the USMCA with a rare display of bipartisanship during a time of political division.
On this vote, the yeas are 385 and the nays are 41. The bill is passed.
Mexico and Canada are among the U.S.'s top trade partners. The two countries together account for about 30% of U.S. foreign trade, totaling $1.2 trillion last year. The trade pact, to replace the 25-year-old North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, includes stricter rules of origin in the automotive industry and requires a higher percent of car components be sourced from North America. It also requires vehicles be made with a greater proportion of higher-wage labor. The USMCA also includes stronger labor and environmental provisions, additional market access, and a digital trade chapter that's set to benefit American farmers, workers, and entrepreneurs.
That we've upgraded NAFTA to include digital trade. More and more trade is going to occur via e-commerce. You have to have provisions on that.
President Trump has made renegotiating NAFTA one of the key issues of his re-election campaign. The deal was first signed by leaders of all three countries last year, but it also needs to be ratified by all three legislatures. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer reached a deal last week after months of negotiation. Although the bill is expected to pass the upper chamber, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell signaled he is going to delay the vote until after the impeachment trial. And it still needs to be ratified by Canada's parliament before being implemented.
It was a record-setting day on Wall Street today, with the Dow, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ all closing at all-time highs. The S&P closed above 3,200 for the first time in history. The Dow and S&P each rose 0.5%, while the NASDAQ gained 0.7%. Investors seem to have brushed off the political turmoil of impeachment. The market was likely pushed up by the House passing the USMCA trade deal, as well as positive economic data. And close Trump ally Mark Meadows announced today that he is not seeking re-election to the House. The North Carolina congressman is close to Trump, and there is speculation he might be seeking a position closer to the president.
Top Trump ally Congressman Mark Meadows is not planning to stay in Congress. He said Thursday he is not planning to run for re-election. He said he would continue to fight for the president, who on Wednesday was impeached by the Democrat-controlled House. Meadows was eyeing the role of chief of staff before former South Carolina Representative Mick Mulvaney got the job. In a Politico interview, Meadows did not say if he would remain in Congress until the end of his term. He said, "At this point, I plan to serve the people of Western North Carolina until it's decided that I can best serve the president and the American people in a different capacity." Meadows has been a fierce opponent of the impeachment proceedings against President Trump and often advises the president on how to handle impeachment and other matters. Long after this impeachment charade is over, it will be said of Washington Democrats, when they couldn't bring themselves to support President Trump for the success of the country, they consoled themselves by trying to silence the will of those who did, the American voters. Meadows did not say what he would do next.
7 candidates focused on beating President Trump in next year's election face-off against each other. The final Democratic presidential debate of 2019 is tonight.
And then there were 7. Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, Bernie Sanders, Tom Steyer, Elizabeth Warren, and Andrew Yang met the qualifications needed for Thursday's debate.
So my message is real clear. Let's get the hell up and take back this country.
Biden is the front runner, but the competition is tight with Sanders.
This is a campaign of the working class of this country, by the working class of this country.
And Warren.
We got a chance to make this a country that works for everyone else. That's why I'm in this fight.
And also with Buttigieg, who is in second place overall but is struggling with Democratic voters under 35, says the latest Quinnipiac poll.
Anybody who sees me speak anywhere will hear the message that I have for America.
Klobuchar hopes her working class roots give her an edge.
I'm someone that has built a career getting things done for people.
Billionaire Steyer has long railed against President Trump.
We now know that the Oval Office cannot reshape a man who does not believe in constitutional democracy.
Meanwhile, Yang says he's got a better chance to make an impression Thursday night.
There will be 50% fewer candidates on the stage this time, and my speaking time would be projected to rise by 50%. so it should be a really exciting night.
A federal appeals court ruled yesterday that the individual mandate component of Obamacare is invalid. The court said other parts of the Affordable Care Act still require further review.
The individual mandate stipulates that Americans must obtain health insurance. It was not decided how much of the act must also follow along with this component. President Trump applauds the court's decision and says he will continue working to provide Americans with better care at lower cost. He said in a White House statement, "We're creating a healthcare system that protects vulnerable patients, makes healthcare more affordable, gives you more choice and control, and delivers the high-quality care Americans deserve." House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said in a statement that the ruling is a chilling threat to the 130 million Americans with pre-existing conditions and every other family who depends on the life-saving protections of the Affordable Care Act. The case of former President Obama's signature healthcare policy is expected to continue over the next year.
Authorities say gunfire rang out near the headquarters of Russia's security service in central Moscow today.
Local media cited Russia's FSB security service as saying that an unknown person opened fire near the FSB headquarters in central Moscow on Thursday evening, killing one officer and wounding several.
Policemen began removing the body from the street and loaded it into an ambulance. Then after some time, we noticed that they carried out another 2 people on stretchers.
The attack happened shortly after Russia's president had delivered his annual news conference and while he was speaking at a Kremlin event meant to celebrate the work of the security services.
Of course, people were scared, because first people were running. Then special forces armed with rifles ran in the opposite direction. There was a large shootout. There were several explosions.
According to the FSB, the gunman is now dead. Local media cited the health ministry as saying 1 FSB officer had died and 5 people had been hurt, including 2 FSB employees.
We just heard loud gunshots. We were sent to the back of the cafe, then into the building. Then we couldn't see or hear anything.
Authorities are now investigating the motive behind the shooting.
Up next, a potential US-UK trade deal has politicians wondering how to deal with different food safety standards. More on that when we return.
Absolutely the #1 show on the planet.
I love it.
Breathtaking.
Incredible.
Awesome.
Very exciting.
Mesmerizing. Really enjoyed it.
It makes you feel alive.
Absolutely flawless.
I laughed, I cried, colorful and vibrant and joyous.
The dancers, you guys are amazing.
They can just fly. Gravity does not apply to them.
Oh my gosh, I was so intrigued by this.
I'd get lost in the music and I'd get lost in what I'm seeing on stage.
It's a very eye-opening experience.
We came for her birthday.
Great experience, well worth it.
Even though it's been going for about 10 years, every year it's a completely different show.
I know this sold out very, very quickly, and I can see why now.
I think I've not seen something like this ever before.
I would recommend it to everybody.
I recommend it to everyone.
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
A potential stumbling block in a US-UK trade deal are the different approaches the two countries have towards food standards. Jane Werrell reports from London.
With Johnson's landslide election victory in the House of Commons, Brexit by the end of January should be all but guaranteed.
It's not just that the British people want their government to get Brexit done, though they do. They want to move politics on and move the country on.
The talk over the coming months will shift to the trade deals the UK will be securing with other countries, with the US being a major player. One potential hurdle to a trade deal is that the UK may have to follow US standards, which are different from the standards it follows now, which are enshrined in EU law.
There's a lot of public concern about food standards in the US and particularly animal welfare standards. So there will be resistance about having agriculture in a trade deal, which will be an area where the US is most interested.
One topic of contention is poultry. The EU banned imports of chlorine-washed chicken in 1997. It is deemed safe to consume by the European Food Safety Authority. But it's banned because the EU thinks the practice of disinfecting poultry at the end stage may compromise food hygiene along the entire slaughter process. The UK Department of International Trade said in a statement sent to NTD that the government is highly committed to negotiating and securing an ambitious free trade deal with the US and will not compromise on high standards of food safety and animal welfare.
The UK and the EU agricultural sectors, they're pretty happy with the status quo and they'll want to keep that.
Experts say Johnson is looking at a very thin trade deal with the EU, giving him more space for a trade deal with the US. Jane Warrell, NTD News, London.
A rare protest has been held at one of China's most prestigious universities after authorities dropped the phrase freedom of thought from the school's charter and replaced it with a pledge to follow the Communist Party's leadership.
The changes to the charter of Fudan University in Shanghai, considered one of China's more liberal institutions, came to light when the Education Ministry said it had approved alterations. Within hours, the Fudan amendments were trending on the Weibo, a Chinese social media platform with one hashtag viewed more than 1 million times. Since Communist Party leader Xi Jinping came to power in 2012, China has tightened controls on the internet and civil society in a campaign that has seen increasing censorship and shrinking space for dissent, including on campuses. Xi has also sought to boost the party's role and deepen its influence across society. A video circulating on Twitter on Wednesday showing a group of Fudan University students singing the college anthem, which includes the phrase, freedom of thought. Students there also confirmed the event had taken place. Calls to Fudan University Press Department on Wednesday seeking comment went unanswered. The Ministry of Education did not immediately respond to a request for comment.
Up next, the TSA expects an increase in travelers this holiday season. More on how to deal with longer wait times at security after the break.
Factual,
honest news.
Not biased, but completely straightforward.
You're not emotionally going up and down.
Bringing morality back to newspapers.
The honest, old-fashioned journalism.
You're presenting the facts and letting the reader decide.
The Epoch Times is a fearlessly independent news media that publishes in 35 countries and 21 languages. Truth and tradition is our motto. Founded as an antidote to communist propaganda, today we're quickly becoming a household name across America. Our subscribers thank us for our relentless and unbiased coverage.
I've been part of the Epoch Times for nearly a decade because I've seen there's no other major media outlet in the world as devoted to real journalism. The Epoch Times has never had any corporate or political agenda. We only serve our readers, and we'll stay that way, no matter what.
We connected the dots around Spygate, the Obama administration's elaborate efforts against Trump's 2016 campaign. We often break news months ahead of other media on topics such as Chinese espionage, cyber warfare, subversion in America, and more. But our authoritative reporting didn't only just begin. We are tried and true.
Our paper was born out of the need to respond to a human rights catastrophe in China. It was enabled by the Communist Party's vicious and dishonest propaganda. We soon learned that Western media were picking up and amplifying the lies. The Epoch Times truthful reporting exposed the Communist Party's lies for the Chinese people. But it also helped protect our Western audience. It disabused for them the lies in this propaganda. Our reporting has also helped uncover how communist ideas are taking root in our own country. The Epoch Times started as a small and unknown publication in one of the toughest media markets in the world. We have built it through hard work and trial and error.
We were founded in the year 2000 in Atlanta, Georgia, by Chinese Americans who had fled communist China. Our independent reporting came at a price. Our staff members in China were jailed and tortured for their reporting, some for as long as 10 years. Because our founders believed in truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance, the principles of the spiritual practice fallen gone. They felt such sacrifices were worth it to ensure for the world an independent, honest media, one that would report on the most pressing issues of our time. As many major media are losing people's trust and declining further every day, the fastest growing newspaper in America delivers truth and tradition. Look us up today.
Tis the season for long airport lines. 42 million people are expected to fly this holiday season. The TSA says that's up 3.9% from last year. It says the increase in travelers could lead to slower security processing, so be prepared. To speed it up, the agency suggests avoiding wrapping any gifts you fly with. If carrying Christmas decorations on board, make sure they'll fit in the overhead space or underneath your seat. This month's holiday travel season began on the 15th and will last through January 5th. And New York City's transportation agency is emphasizing increased accessibility in its capital plan. This will affect over 1 million people with disabilities who struggle to use the subway system.
New York's bustling population is heavily dependent on the city's subway system, which includes members of the accessibility community. The MTA has come out to express how serious they are about making the subway more open to people with disabilities.
It's the right thing to do, and that's why, to reiterate, it has been a priority of mine and the team that I head up from day one. Quite frankly, and simply put, I want this to be the most accessible transit system in the world.
Members of the MTA say 20 stations throughout New York City's 5 boroughs will be accessible within 5 years.
You will no longer be able to say that only a quarter of our system is accessible. We will have upwards of 40%, in the low 40s to mid 40s% of our system accessible, and that puts us on the path to 50%, and so on and so forth.
More than 1 million people who need better accessibility struggle to navigate the city's subway system. Advocates hope that the new upgrades and installations of elevators will mitigate this problem.
This project in improving the subway system's accessibility is one of several others as a part of the MTA's upcoming 2020 to 2024 capital plan. The plan's budget is over $50 billion and will be marked as the largest amount of money the agency has ever spent in its history. Don Tran, NTD News, New York.
Up next, San Francisco postal workers are seeing improved efficiency in handling holiday packages thanks to a new machine. More on that after the break.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America. And I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
Dramatic surveillance video shows a truck crashing through the wall of a baggage claim area at a Florida airport early this morning. No passengers were in the area, but employees at the counter of a car rental service were. They were shaken but not hurt. The driver is in the hospital with serious injuries. One baggage claim belt was damaged and had to be taken out of commission. Police saw the truck driving recklessly on the highway before the crash, but were unable to catch up with it. The airport CEO estimates the cost to the airport at $250,000. And the holidays are a busy time for many businesses, and especially for the Postal Service. A new machine is being used this year to help handle larger packages.
It has our own calendar and stuff, right?
What used to be the busiest day of the year is now the busiest week, thanks to online shopping. Large orders have increased in size, so the Postal Service is using a new machine this year to process them, the Universal Sorting System.
One of the challenges we had in the past is that all pieces that were not machinable, we had to sort them manually.
This new automated machine sorts more efficiently and accurately.
It helps us to finalize the mail up to 2 or 3 hours earlier than we would have doing it manually.
This machine at the San Francisco facility was installed in June, and it is expected to handle over 72,000 oversized packages from December 16th to the 22nd.
The throughput for this machine can process 2,200 pieces per hour.
Packages are dropped from the universal unloader onto this loading belt, and it makes its way around the machine.
The parcels go through the singulator that lines them up in single file to go through a mirrored camera tunnel. It scans all 6 sides of the package for a barcode and enters them into the system. It also keeps account of all the packages it's processing that day. The machine sorts medium to large packages up to 70 pounds. It cannot take packages over 46 inches long and 28 inches wide.
We have mail that we collect locally that stays with us, and we also have mail that leaves the facility into the rest of the country. And we can actually sort both simultaneously.
There are currently 21 of these machines throughout the nation. People are kindly reminded to tape and pad the boxes correctly, and there are restrictions for mailing hazardous items. To ensure the goods are delivered before Christmas, first-class mail should be sent by December 20th, priority mail by the 21st, and express mail by the 23rd. Eileen Ng, NTD News, California.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.